As tradition, on December we talk about DOS. Notoriously, DOS is a single-tasking operating system. But what if I told you that it's possible to multitask on pure DOS without needing Windows? Now, let's make clear what I intend for multitasking. There are two kinds of multitasking. Cooperative multitasking, where the various programs contain explicit instructions that tell the operating system that at that point it is possible to switch to another task. The two most famous examples of cooperative multitasking operating systems are Windows before version 95 and macOS before version X. Obviously, cooperative multitasking is not possible under DOS, as it requires the programs to be written with explicit task switching in mind. If your program thinks something like async await, where you explicitly tell in which point of the code it's possible to switch to another task. If anything, on DOS there was the DOS shell task switcher that allowed loading multiple DOS programs and then switch from one program to the other with a key combination. The problem here is that while you were using one program, although all the other programs remained resident in memory, their execution was paused until you put that program in the foreground. For example, if you were extracting a zip archive and then you switched to a text editor, the zip archive extraction did not proceed even though the CPU was not doing anything except waiting for user input. Then we have preemptive multitasking, where the operating system, every few milliseconds, temporarily suspends the current program execution regardless of what it's doing and switches executing another program and switching between programs so rapidly to give the illusion that programs are running simultaneously, without needing the programs to be written in a particular way. Examples of preemptive multitasking operating systems are Amiga OS, Linux, OS/2 Warp, Windows starting from version 95, and macOS starting from version X. Now, it's clear that if I open multiple DOS windows on Windows 95 or OS/2 Warp, I can multitask DOS programs. But in this video, I want to show you how it's possible to enable preemptive multitasking on MS-DOS 6.22 using a wonderful program named DesqView. Specifically, we're going to install DesqView 386 version 2.80 from 1996, that is the last released version, on a 66 MHz 486DX2 with 32 MB of RAM, that runs obviously MS-DOS 6.22. The installation is really simple. Just insert the DesqView floppy, run the install command and follow the on-screen instructions. Easy peasy. Given that DesqView was a commercial software, each copy was tied to an owner, and in this case I put free, which is my pseudonym, and then I left a subliminal messages in Italian that invites you to subscribe to my channel. What are you waiting for? But jokes aside, the installation is really simple and quick. And after the installation is completed, it asks me if I'd like to install QEMM 386 version 8 as well. Now, the situation is as follows. Multitasking and memory management closely go hand in hand. DesqView from QuarterDeck is a software that enables preemptive multitasking on DOS. But it's clear that the more programs run simultaneously, and the more RAM you need. Moreover, DOS, for architectural reasons, has memory divided in conventional memory, upper memory, high memory, expanded memory, and extended memory. And to manage all those memory types, you need a memory manager software. Now, DOS already provides QEMM.sys to manage extended memory and EMM386.exe to manage upper memory and expanded memory. But there are other alternative memory managers, and QEMM 386, also from QuarterDeck, is one of these alternative memory managers. DesqView is able to use the memory in an optimal way if it is managed by QEMM 386, and the DesqView plus QEMM 386 combo was sold in a single package named DesqView 386. Little trivia. Let's then install QEMM 386 version 8. 8.01 if you want to be pedantic. Here as well, all you have to do is put the 3 floppies when asked for, and the QEMM 386 installation couldn't be easier. Now it asks us if we want to run Optimize, which is the QEMM equivalent of a mem maker. For now, let's say yes, even though we are going to make some changes in a moment. Optimize restarts the computer a couple of times, and at the end, it tells us that it freed 634K of conventional memory. Not bad. We're already doing much better than QEMM.sys and then EMM386.exe could. But we can still make a couple of optimization targeted from using DesqView. Let's run the qsetup command to configure QEMM386. Let's disable the DPMI host. If you're asking what the heck is a DPMI host, in simple terms, it is an environment for running 32-bit DOS programs, but apart from the fact that there are much better DPMI hosts, but I noticed that QEMM386's DPMI host is buggy and unstable, so better disable it. Next, let's take a look at the DOS app configuration. DOS app allows us to load in upper memory some parts of DOS. But beware, given that we want to use DesqView, we must ensure that DOS app is partial, and that DOS equals high is no. Now, this might seem counterintuitive. Why wouldn't I want to load DOS into high memory? Just as a reminder, the high memory are the first 64K after the first meg of RAM. This is because, while DOS uses some kilobytes of RAM, it doesn't fully use all the 64Ks of high memory. For DesqView, it's better that those 64Ks are free, so that it can use it with something that fully uses them. Next, let's take a look at the QEMM parameters. And in the Stealth ROMs section, select Stealth Mapping. What does Stealth do? I didn't understand it fully, but from what I understand, the various BIOSes that are into upper memory are transferred into expanded memory, so that we free more upper memory. I repeat, take what I just said with a grain of salt, as I didn't fully understand the topic. The point is that by enabling the stealth feature, DesqView can provide the maximum amount of free conventional memory to the various programs that run simultaneously. Also, what's the difference between stealth mapping and stealth frame? I don't know, but QuarterDeck suggests stealth mapping, and only if stealth mapping gives problems, instability or freezes, then select stealth frame. Perfect. Now with S we save the configuration. And it tells us to reboot in order for this configuration to take effect, and then run Optimize again. Very well, let's reboot. By the way, notice that now when you press Ctrl-Alt-Delete, you skip the BIOS, and there's a QuarterDeck Quick Boot that reinitializes the operating system in a much quicker way. Okay, let's run the Optimize command. Let it make all the reboot it needs. And now we still have 634K of free conventional memory, but we both used and freed more upper memory, which is always a good thing. Let's reboot one more time just to be safe. Now, one thing that I want you to note is that with QEMM, if I run the mem/c/p command, I don't see the details of the memory resident programs as I'm used to. QuarterDeck comes to the rescue with a manifest program, automatically installed with QEMM386. Just run the mft command. And here's a program that gives me detailed information about the system, and particularly of the memory. For example, if I go to the first meg section, under Programs, I see all the memory resident programs, at what addresses they are, and how much they use. Or if I go to Expanded, I see information about expanded memory, and so on. Very useful, the last section, Hints. Here it says that we can still perform two optimizations. The first one is to stop DOS from allocating its interrupt stacks, and the second one is to use the /e option with MSIDEX. And if we go to details, it tells us what to do. On config.sys, we have to put the line stacks equals 0,0. And on autoexec.bat, we have to add the /e switch to the MSIDEX command line. Also note that not only it tells you what to do, but also why and why not do it, so it's also a wonderful educational tool. Let's then edit our config.sys. Notice that the line about QEMM.sys has been replaced with QEMM386.sys. While we're here, if we rewind a little bit in this video, you'll notice that when starting the computer, QEMM complains that it does not have a shadow RAM that it can use. So it tells us to put the sh:(n) parameter to QEMM386.sys. While we're here, let's do it. Let's put our stacks equals 0,0. I'm not showing you how to change the autoexec.path file, as you already know how to do it. One more thing. We saw that the mem/sys/p command doesn't give us useful information if we use QEMM386. However, the mi command from PC Tools works well. It recognizes QEMM386 and it gives us detailed information. For example, you see that we have about 29 megs free of both extended memory and expanded memory. Strangely though, if I try to run Wolfenstein 3D, you see that it only recognizes expanded memory EMS, but not extended memory XMS. Go figure why. But enough talking. The main topic of this video is multitasking using DesqView. So let's start DesqView with the dv command. DesqView's user interface is this rectangle on the top right, that we're going to explore in a moment. But first, we still have one last thing to configure. Let's then select Open Window, Change Program. Now it asks us what program to change, and let's type bd to change the big DOS program. Let's press F10 for the advanced options. And you see that on the top right there are two memory settings. Maximum program memory size tells how much maximum free conventional memory to give for each big DOS window, and 600K are more than enough. Right under that, there is the maximum EMS, XMS, etc. that tells how much maximum memory above the first megabyte to give for each big DOS window, and 256K is really too small. Given that we have 32 megs of RAM on this machine, in this field we can put 8192, so that each big DOS window has 8 megs at its disposal. So I can run up to 4 big DOS windows simultaneously. All the other options are good as default, so let's press Enter to save the configuration. Okay, we are finally ready to multitask. Let's go then to Open Window. And one thing that I didn't explain is that DesqView is conceived as an application launcher. And in the Open Window menu, you see that we have various items, amongst them DOSEdit and DOSQBasic, that directly open those applications. And if we wanted, we could add a launcher for each application or game that we want. But personally, I find it a waste of time. I prefer always using Big DOS, that opens the command prompt, and from there we run anything we want, as we used to under DOS. Running the mi command, you see that we have 592K of free conventional memory. DesqView uses a little bit of conventional memory, but 592K are enough for almost all the applications and games, excluding maybe only Falcon 3. Okay, let's try what I said at the beginning of the video, that is editing a file while extracting a zip archive. Let's edit our autoexec.bat. Now, by pressing rapidly the Alt key, here's the DesqView menu on the top right. Now all we have to do is Open Window, Big DOS, and we have a new DOS window. From here, I open my trusty Volkov Commander. I go to the temp directory, and I start extracting the archive with the pk-unzip command. By rapidly pressing the Alt key 2 times, I switch to the other task, that is, in this case, is the DOS editor that we just left. I set, for example, the blaster variable for easing the auto-detection of the Sound Blaster card by the games. A220 I5 D1 H5 T6 tells that it's a Sound Blaster 16 and which IRQ and DMA are used by this Sound Blaster. It is not this that interests us, but rather the fact that I spent a bit of time while the zip file extraction was running in the background. Okay, Now the zip file extraction should be completed. Let's see if it's true. Let's press Alt-Alt rapidly. And here's our Volkov commander with the archive that completed the extraction while we were editing our Odysee.bat. Magic. We just saw two full-screen applications. But DesqView is also a test mode window manager. Here's how it works. By rapidly pressing Alt, you open the DesqView menu. Next, with the R letter, you open the Rearrange menu that allows to change the arrangement of the current window. You see that there's the item position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. And this is a shortcut for resizing the current window and put it on one of the 9 default positions. For example, if I press 1, you see that the current window is of half height and it's on the top of the screen. Now, Alt-Alt for switching to the other window, and with a rearrange in position 2, here's at half height at the bottom. Personally, I find this window management a curiosity with little practical utility, because on DOS we are limited to 80 characters by 25 on the whole screen. So I really have very little space to show useful information with multiple windows simultaneously. To return the current window to full screen, just press rapidly Alt to open the DesqView menu and the letter Z for zoom. Now, to close a window, the usual Alt for the DesqView menu and select Close Window. Now it asks for confirmation, because Close Window brutally stops anything that is running in the current window. Let's select Yes, as brutally interrupting Volkov commander is not a problem. And you see that immediately switched to the other window. Let's exit the editor saving. Now, another way of closing a window on DesqView is simply to type exit at the command prompt. Now, one precaution for using DesqView compared to regular DOS is the following. Usually, on DOS, you would load the ansi.sys driver in the config.sys file and the DOS key or equivalent like DOSed in the autoexec.bat file. With DesqView, if you do these two things, you would only waste conventional memory, because the DOS windows of DesqView behave like you never loaded neither ansi.sys nor DOS key. So, for example, if I want to show an ANSI art image, I need to load the ANSI driver after opening the DOS window. But how do I load ansi.sys from a DOS window, considering that it should be loaded from config.sys? The answer is, you don't load the ansi.sys file provided by DOS, but DesqView provides an alternative program called dvansi that you can execute like any normal command. And now you have enabled ANSI sequence support for this window only. Okay, next I was talking about DOS key. In theory, you could run DOS key now, but I want to show you a better alternative called DOSed, that, other than providing history and command line editing like DOS key, it also provides automatic file name completion with tab like Linux. The problem is that the command for running DOSed is quite long, and I don't remember it. So I seized the opportunity to show you another nice feature of DesqView that is copy-paste between windows. So, I open another DOS window. With my trusty Volkov commander, I move to the non-DOS directory where I installed DOSed, and I view the DOSed documentation. Here you see which is the command for DOSed to make it behave like bash. Let's copy the text that we want. Let's press rapidly Alt and select mark, that is the term used by DesqView for selecting text and copying it. Now, let's move the cursor on the character where the command that we want to copy begins. Let's press B to mark the beginning of what we want to copy. Let's select the whole command. And press E to copy up to this point. Now ESC to exit the mark mode. Alt-Alt to switch to the other window. Alt to open the DesqView menu. Select Transfer, that is the term used by DesqView for the past operation. Fantastic! Another thing that I didn't say is that also the programs that enable text scrollback, like Scrollit or Peruse, need to be started from a DOS window under DesqView and not in the autoexec.bat file. Let's run the peruse/e64 command to have a scrollback buffer of 64K in the expanded memory. Let's recap. In this window I have an ANSI driver, DesqView that enables command completion with tab, and peruse that allows to scroll text. Now, if I view an ANSI art image, for example the got in the c::ansi got.ans file, here's the image with all its colors. By pressing the scroll lock key, finally a program that uses that key, I can scroll the image by pressing the up and down arrow keys. To demonstrate that all the TSRs that we loaded, ANSI, DesqView and peruse, are valid only for this window, let's switch window with Alt-Alt. Let's go to the ANSI directory, and let's view the same got as before. Notice that in this window, none of the ANSI sequences get interpreted. You don't have scrollback, and you don't have command history or tab completion. Changing subject. How do games behave under DesqView? The answer is, it depends. We can divide those games into three main eras. First 80s, where there were games made for the IBM PC, they had CGI graphics and PC speaker sound. These games ran well under DesqView, but they aged pretty badly, so let's move on. Next, we have the games from the late 80s and early 90s before Doom. The golden era of shareware games from Apogee and Epic. These games are hit or miss, that is, some run, some are problematic. For example, Wolfenstein 3D runs, but as soon as I open the DesqView menu, it starts having some graphical glitches. Aladdin runs perfectly and it doesn't have any problems, even after opening the DesqView menu. Commander Keen starts, but the graphics are so corrupted that it's unplayable. Lastly, we have the games that, starting from Doom, use the DOS4GW DOS extender. All the games that I tried that use this DOS extender start, but they freeze immediately. And now I hear you telling me, "Hey Franco, do you know that there is the DOS32A DOS extender that is compatible with the DOS4GW, but it fixes most of the bugs of DOS4GW?" Yes, I know that it exists, and I tried running those games with DOS32A. The result is that they still freeze, but at a different point. So DesqView is not really meant for gaming. More so considering that many DOS action games use the Alt key to perform actions like jumping or shooting. But the Alt key is the same key that opens the DesqView menu, so even if the game runs, it becomes difficult to play. Lastly, as a bonus, I want to show you a little oddity. If you think that DesqView is a relatively recent software, version 2.80 that we are using is from 1996, and that it requires at least a 386 processor, well, you're wrong on both. Here's DesqView version 1.23 from 1986, running on an Olivetti M24 on an 8086 CPU. Now, on this kind of machine, we are mainly limited by RAM, and every DOS window has only 128K available. With this little RAM, I cannot do that much, so I'm going to write a simple GW basic program that starts from 0, prints the current value, increments every time, and repeats forever. This just to show you that this window is executing code. Switching to the other window, I run dir only to do something here as well. As you can see, both tasks are executed at the same time, and given the slowness of the CPU, you can also see when DesqView switches from one program to the other. Personally, I find this version of DesqView only a little oddity, but with almost no practical application, because you're limited by the tiny amount of RAM and by the slow CPU. However, it's still fascinating to see that in 1986 it wasn't only the Amiga capable of preemptive multitasking, but it was also possible on DOS. And with this video, I think I end the December tradition on my part. because honestly, I ran out of ideas on what to talk regarding DOS. Thank you for having followed this series until the end. Thanks for watching. You can find this video both on YouTube and on Odysee. You can find all the links in the description. Please like and comment this video. I would tell you to subscribe to my channel, but almost all my videos are in Italian. Nevertheless, if you understand Italian and you like Linux, programming and retro computing, subscribe to my channel as well. See you on the next video. Ciao!